Now let's talk about some truth. With all this propaganda, fake news, fake this, fake that, everybody's lying across the board. You got a pathological liar, xenophobic, adolescent tweeting, McDonald eating, psychopath, egomaniac, mental case, 70-year-old man in the White House. I call it the Satan spawn, Satan's disciples. And it's exactly what it is. The epitome of this war between good and evil is what we face every day. But nobody wants to realize that. Nobody wants to confront. Nobody wants to stand up and tell the truth anymore. Everybody wants to compromise. They want to sit and just be diligent little sheep that just comply and conform and be indoctrinated like mindless zombies in a world of narcissism, techie, millennial, selfie stick, all about me mentality. And the greatest thing you can ever do as a human being is coexist. Peacefully with each other. Nobody's pointing fingers. Nobody's hating on one another. There's no such thing in this country as unity. It never has been. It was founded on a lie. It was founded on theft and genocide. It was founded on Latin massacre, murder, pillaging, raping, exploiting, victimizing innocent people. And no matter how you talk, and you can fly any kind of flag you want. You can talk all the garbage and mumbo jumbo all you want, all this political narratives and political agendas. Whether you call yourself Democrat or call yourself Republican, doesn't make any difference because it is evil. It's evil incarnate. Because you're not going to have a civilized society when you steal a country and you genocide innocent people. And you tell me, I talk about the same thing all the time. It has to be talked about. It has to be brought to the forefront of your idiotic news that you listen to every night. And you're hearing the same old things. You're hearing about crimes evidence that you have on a criminal that you have as a president, but you do nothing. That's why I entitled this video, Bribery on the Bench. Somebody's getting paid. And as much as you want to avoid it or evade the issue or elude what's really going on, it's bribery on your bench. Just like here in Colorado, what goes on in Wells County. And it's not something that all of a sudden just came out of the blue. It's something that's been going on. It's indicative of Wells County court system. That you got bribery on the bench. You got crooks. You got crooks as sheriffs. And you hear this all over the country. Cops setting up people. Cops planting evidence. And nobody's held accountable. Cops shooting innocent people. Don't serve one day in jail. But you can get stopped one time out of your life for a DUI and they throw the book at you like you're some federal criminal. Put you in some orange suit and put ankle bracelets on you. See, this is the madness that people don't get. And no matter how much you try and tell me about justice, there's no such thing. in this country. There's no such thing in a lot of countries around the world. There's a dictatorship because you don't listen to people, and you sit there and you talk about the House of Representatives, that you represent the people, we the people. It's no such lie as we the people. It's we the rich and wealthy that buys our way through things and buys our way out of things. And that includes your DOJ and your Justice Department and your judges and your lawyers and your Supreme Court and your Congress. If you were legit, if you were doing the job that you were supposed to do, that man would not even be in office, him or his family, because criminals go to prison. But that hypocrisy that you hold certain people to a higher accountability than others, like the working class and the poor. You perpetuate poverty, you perpetuate unemployment, you perpetuate uneducation, you perpetuate drug addiction, because this is how you keep your system progressing. Because you victimize and you polarize people in certain sectors of society. But other people like Trump, like people like Madoff, like Cohen, how can you run a country when a good percentage of your administration is being indicted for crimes? And how can you not say anything about that? How can you stand before a judge in a corrupted system and expect justice? The innate difference in God and Satan is apparently clear. One lies. One stirs up endless hatred, racist bigotry, sexism, victimizing children, victimizing animals, and just complete havoc around the world. People at each other's throat, warmongering, drug cartels, having soldiers in Afghanistan when they stopped growing opium. Now you got soldiers over there guarding opium fields because your pharmaceutical companies want to make billions and billions of dollars overcharging medicine that people dying need. It's like this new cure for cancer. $32,000 a pop. Who can afford that? And this is what the EpiPen, the whole thing, that you put medicine out there to help people, but only a certain class of people can afford it, and that you're rich and you're wealthy. And I never understand, and I never will understand, that you call yourself a civilized society and you victimize people every single day. And you have criminals getting away with crimes every day, but you want to charge somebody when you stand before a judicial system like Wells County that you know is corrupt, and it's been corrupt. And it's not just Wells County. There's other counties around Colorado too that you know are corrupt. And you call yourself a mayor, or you call yourself governors, and you call yourself congressmen, and you call yourself senators, and you allow this inhumane bribery and corruption to go on for decades and centuries, and you do nothing because money is changing hands. But yet, common people, you want to ruin their lives with outlandish fines and taking away their driving privileges and sticking them in some stupid probation program and some intervention where you're paying $15 a pop 5 and 6 times a month, and you want to charge them for probation, for your probation officer. You want to charge them for the meetings, and you want to charge them for some kind of revocation for your license, and that you know that you illegally took away. And your insurance companies go right along with it. You perpetuate crimes because you're criminals. You perpetuate injustice because you're criminals. Just people don't perpetuate crime. Just people, civilized people find solutions to resolve issues, not perpetuate the criminality of a society. And it's like I said, I repeal everything your judicial system has done in Wells County against me. I told you that. Mayor, governor, I don't care who you are. If you're part of this corrupted political infrastructure you have in Colorado, I appeal everything you stand for, because you don't stand for justice. Because if you do, I would follow. I'll be the first person to stand up. You don't. Just like your housing, you perpetuate victimizing people every single day. Extortion. You got low taxes. You got low utility bills. But people can't afford to buy an apartment. You can't afford to buy a house. You can't afford to buy a condo. You can't afford to buy a townhouse. You can't afford to buy a studio, which is a box. And these places that you call homes, and your patio homes, and your apartments and your condominiums, your stack 'em and rack 'ems that you charge outlandish fees for, and you wonder why you have a homeless problem. You wonder why you got a drug problem. Because there's only so much humanely people can take without being overwhelmed and facing the hardship of life every single day. And there's nobody supporting you. Nobody. All this supposed representation, your political infrastructures, is non-existent. Just like in your courts. You tell me the officer gave you a pink piece of paper about revocation of your license. You never gave it to me. And yet and still you want to take away a person's driving privileges. And when I tell you, no, I'm not surrendering my license, then I'm the criminal. See, you perpetuate criminality. This is how a illegal, corrupted system of bribery works. You perpetuate criminality. Because first of all, you have no just laws. The laws are compromised, corrupt because of bribery. And your prime example is the President of the United States. It's indicative of that. You draw out what's legally supposed to happen. And you say he's not above the law, but he is. You say certain extreme wealthy people aren't above the law, but they are. Because they're the ones that Go to your tennis clubs and your golf clubs, and they play tennis and they play golf with you. And you think that regular people get the same kind of justice those people get? White folk get the same kind of justice black folk get? Male justice versus female justice? Male wages versus female wages? All of this is inclusive in what I say of an illegal, corrupted system. Because if your laws are corrupt and they're bribed and there's on somebody's payroll, then your society is the same and your leadership is the same. It's a criminal infrastructure. So let's stop lying to yourselves. And it's something that is not new. It's something that's always been historically. And it goes back to the simple analogy of good versus evil. And somehow you listen to a bunch of whiny little children in the news, and somehow you think they're indicative of truth. They'll tell you lies 24/7, 365. In fact, they just redundantly tell you the same things over and over and over again. And somehow, and you think it's news. It's not. It's the perpetuation of criminality that this country was founded on. If the country was founded on peaceful resolution, coexisting peacefully, coexisting like true Christian humanitarians, we wouldn't be having these subjects. But it wasn't. It was founded on genocide. It was founded on theft. It was founded on deceit. It was founded on manipulation. It was founded on historical, pathological, racist, bigoted lies. Because for decades and centuries, you hated people of color. Because you believe in a white race being superior over any other race, just like Germany with this pure race garbage, and Hitler, and your so-called man you worship, Hitler, was part Jew and part African. So even in that, you glorified a lie, because he wasn't pure German. And that's the whole thing with Satan. It's like a sheep, a wolf in sheep's clothing. It's not what you see on the outside. It's what's on the inside that counts. And the same thing that goes on in this country. It's not what you see on the outside. It's what goes on behind closed doors. Like a man who has a closed door meeting with the enemy that you had for decades and centuries, which is Russia. But yet and still, that's okay. Since 1987, he's been colluding with Russia, business with Russia. Russia bailed him out of debt, just like Saudi Arabia did. And it's not that you don't have the facts and proof. You have it. And that's why I'll never believe in your court system. I'll never believe in your court system. Because you never made those who committed theft and genocide accountable. You never held them accountable. So how in God's creation are you going to hold anybody else accountable for crimes when your so-called forefathers and founders were nothing but criminals, barbarian heathens, uncivilized filth? That created a corrupted, illegal infrastructure you call a government. How can you believe in a flawed system? How can you believe in a system founded on theft and genocide of innocent people? And you want to talk about laws? You want to talk about immigration? You want to talk about a constitution? You want to talk about policy, legislation, lawmakers, Congress, Supreme Court? You can't. Because you base everything that you are on the criminality of theft and genocide. And any Harvard, Ivy League lawyer understands that. Law can't be founded on something illegal. That's just common sense. You don't need to be a genius to understand that. Like trying to build a house on quicksand. How far do you think that's going to last? And I'll tell you, Colorado, I'm getting together with an attorney, and I will file a civil lawsuit against the state of Colorado for the abuse of my constitutional rights, for the abuse of my civil rights. When you impose such idiotic, outrageous, ludicrous penalties on one person for one simple mistake they made in their life and never had any priors or made that mistake before. That's why I said your laws are made up by criminals. Because it's not about the law, it's about money. Wells County is all about corruption, the money, fatten somebody's pocket in their local government. Come on. Let's just call a spade a spade. Call it for what it is. You're not going to give a person probation. You're not going to give a person community service. You're not going to give a person that you got to go and have these intervention meetings when you have no prior drug addiction or alcohol, and you have no prior of any convictions of any crime, and you're going to throw a book at a person, just come up with any kind of lie just to extort money from a person. And then when a person talks about it, you want to cut everything in half. But that's just for the people who stand up. What about those who don't? What about those who are uneducated? What are those who about a criminal past that you put all these crazy penalties upon, and they pay them because they have to? What about those people that you victimize? Colorado citizens that you victimized for decades and centuries because nobody called you on it. Nobody said anything. Nobody said how corrupt the law enforcement and the judicial system in Wells County is. And although you can go to the internet and bring up the corruption about the judges who sit on the bench in Wells County, all of them, and the mayor and your political parties who know about it and went along with it. It makes you just as much as the criminals they are. But yet and still, nobody calls you on it. Nobody says anything. People just pay the fines because they're indoctrinated, compliant, conformed sheep that you made them into. But then there are some people who don't stand for it, like myself. Some people who will call you on it. Some people who will call out Satan's disciples. Call out those who abuse a person's civil rights and constitutional rights. And I don't know what what some people call life. But to be in prison in a terrorist regime of theft and genocide is not living. You're in prison. You're enslaved. Because there is no justice. Because there never was. When no one is held accountable, like this clown in the White House is not being held accountable for his crimes, past and present. And your CIA and your NSA and your MI5 and MI6 and your Homeland Security and all this other paid to play zombies, I'm going to call you, because you don't think. You just obey and serve. That's exactly what it is. And it's just like, it's indicative of who your masters is. And that's Satan. Obey and serve. And that's exactly what it is. Because no judge is going to let a cop that kills innocent people go free. No judge is going to let a man all his life, his criminality with his family, extorting money from people with fake college, fake real estate deals, there and go through years of administration. Nixon, you knew Nixon was a criminal way before he became a criminal. And that's the thing. And that's how I don't believe in your judicial system. I don't believe in your government. I don't believe in your government officials, because you're criminals. Criminals can't govern. They dictate. They're dictators. And that's what you have in this country. You have dictators. You don't have civilized society. You have a bunch of barbaric, heathenist terrorists, dictators ruling America. And the true people that have been in this country, when you invaded it, you put on reservations. And these are just things I've talked about before, and I will continue to talk about them. I will continue to exploit what you see every day. And you talk about voting, like voting is an answer. If voting was an answer, things would change and not remain the same for decades and centuries. And you call it progress. And the only way civilized people can have a voice is that you expose the criminals, the bribery, the corruption, whether it's in Colorado or any of the other 51 states around in this world. You, in this country, you don't settle. And everybody talks about, what would Jesus do? Jesus would do the same thing. Just like he did with the Sadducees and the Pharisees, setting up tables of profit in the temple. He got pissed, and he kicked them out. He called them for what they were. Looters, gamblers. You desecrate the house of God. Just like these terrorist regime in Washington, D.C. and Capitol Hill desecrate the name of America. It bothers me as a Christian man, and it bothers me as a human being, that you can tear gas children, you can cage children, you can tell people that are looking for asylum into a country that you're criminals. You're a caravan of sexual criminals and gangsters and thugs and all this other stuff. The same thing that you were when you came and you invaded the Americas. So where are they any different than you? Did they stop you? Did they have military out there guarding against you? Tear gassing you? That's what Satan does. That's the epitome of Satan. He takes the truth and twists it into a lie. And he perpetuates that lie. It's like forefathers and founders. We're no founders, invaders. You twist the truth into a lie. When you talk about a constitution, there already was a constitution here. Talk about American people. American people were already here when you invaded the Americas. And this is something that nobody on your idiotic TV shows is going to say that. That Columbus was nothing but a terrorist, bringing a bunch of criminals and dissidents and colonists that Spain and England didn't want. Nobody's going to say that because they're afraid to say it, because they know it's the truth. And you ask me why I say these things? Because like Jesus, it's the truth. And you can't hide the truth. And you can't keep truth down, because someone is always going to speak truth, whether it's me or somebody else. Whether it's this generation or another generation, there are going to be people who speak truth. And as they say, truth shall set you free. And the only way you're going to free this abomination you call America is to keep telling the truth. And I love truthers. I love those who expose the criminals in this country. Whether you hear it on Facebook, YouTube, or anywhere else. The whistleblowers. That's what humanity is. Blowing the whistle on evil. And whether you listen to this video or not, or whether you watch it or not, doesn't matter to me, because God knows it's the truth. In Colorado, judicial system, I'm going to be the one to clean up your bribery and corruption. Because once this lawsuit was filed with the Supreme Court, and that's where I'm willing to take it as far as I can. Because what you impose on regular people in this state is ridiculous. And you know it's corrupt. And you know it's a bribery on the bench. I'm done.